Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a very spicy yet effective pick for the Color Cup, HISUIAN Arcanine. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now HISUIAN Arcanine is a Fire and Rock type Pokemon with the moveset of Snarl, Crunch, and Wild Charge, and this trainer uses it to help take on the dreaded TREVENANT-TOXAPEX core to great success in the Color Cup. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out HISUIAN Arcanine core breaking the Color Cup. Hopping the first match, leading Lurantis into Trevenant, two better responses in the back, so we see the save switch into HISUIAN Arcanine. Arcanine farming up, Trevenant staying in here, so Arcanine is going to be firing off the Crunch. Crunch is going to get a shield from the Trevenant. Trevenant throws on alignment and gives Arcanine a Snarl for free. Arcanine now has another Crunch loaded, shields a Seed Bomb, goes for the Crunch, but it's caught onto Toxapex. Bad news for the Toxapex, however. These poison jabs are going to be resisted, and HISUIAN Arcanine gets the charge moves incredibly quickly. Toxapex makes it to the brine. Arcanine is going to commit a shield and farm up to the back-to-back Wild Charges, looking to put the pain into that Toxapex. Wild Charge lands, aggressive switch into Lurantis. Opponent only going to be able to make it to a brine, and Lurantis comfortably tanks the resisted brine and gets the farm down. Opponent can't send back in the Trevenant, but a resisted Leaf Blade is going to hurt. Lurantis has a pretty solid attack stat, so Leaf Blade is able to land. Trevenant not wanting to take any more damage, they're going to be firing off a Shadow Ball, and down goes Lurantis. But at this point, you have a Wild Charge saved on that HISUIAN Arcanine, and you have an entire Shadow Ninetales in the back. Opponent sends in Shadow Zapdos. Zapdos will be met with the Shadow Weather Ball. This should be grabbing the final shield, and we see the combo play back into the Arcanine. That's gonna be goodbye Zapdos. In comes the Trevenant. Trevenant, not enough HP remaining, gets farmed down, and that is a good game. We've got same leads in the next match. Lurantis going up against Trevenant. Same game plan as before. We are going to see a save switch into HISUIAN Arcanine. Arcanine farming up. Opponent not switching out, so Arcanine going to fire off this Crunch right away. Crunch does get a shield. Opponent now going to send in Tentacruel, and that is not a good response to an Arcanine. I believe this is only enough for an Acid Spray. It is. Opponent not building up to the Scald, and that's going to cost them. HISUIAN Arcanine going for the Wild Charge. It connects, and down goes Tentacruel. Arcanine as well, leaving with a Crunch loaded, so if they send back in the Trevenant, which they do, they're probably going to have to commit a shield here. Crunch is going to get a shield, and now with a 2-0 shield advantage, in comes the Ninetales. This Trevenant does have a ton of energy, commits the shield, it is the Shadow Ball in the back. Oh no, it's Pelipper. Pelipper, a very big core breaker for Lurantis and for the Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Firing off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to land, but this Lurantis is being torn to shreds by these wing attacks. Pelipper fires off the Weather Ball. That's going to land. They make it to another move, and we're going to see Lurantis let this through. Lurantis, with a sliver of HP, cannot get the move off. That is absolutely awful. Ninetales going to be firing off the Weather Ball here. Is it going to be enough to KO the Pelipper? No, it is not. With a sliver of HP, opponent makes it to a last-second Weather Ball, and unfortunately, I believe that's going to be game over as Trevenant makes it to the Shadow Ball, and that's a very heartbreaking loss. Dream lead in the next match, Lurantis into Lantern. Opponent is going to be save switching into Trevenant, and Trevenant will be answered with the Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Going for the Weather Ball, losing CMP to the Trevenant, calling the bait, it's the Seed Bomb, what a play. And now going for the Zero Bubble Weather Ball here. Opponent is going to commit the shield. Opponent should be able to, it looks like they weren't quite able to make it to the Shadow Ball, but even a Seed Bomb would be close here, so we will see a shield being used. Opponent now going to send in Lantern. Lantern farming up quite a bit of energy. Ninetales going for the Psyshock. Psyshock, not the strongest move ever, but actually grabs a shield from the opponent. Opponent may have been threatened by a potential Solar Beam, and grabbing a shield there is quite nice. Psyshock is going to land. In comes Lurantis in the back. Opponent has Ferrothorn, and Ferrothorn is going to be answered by HISUIAN Arcanine. Arcanine going to be firing off the Crunch. Crunch is going to land, continuing to farm up, making it to another Crunch and winning CMP over the Arcanine. This Crunch is going to get them quite deep into the red and getting a defense drop as well. They're going to fire off a Power Whip. That does get the Arcanine low. Arcanine does get farmed down. Back in comes Lurantis, but this is the charge move that would do the most damage here if they have Flash Cannon. Turns out just a Power Whip. In comes the Lantern. Lantern has a lot of energy, but all of it's going to be resisted. They go for the Thunderbolt. Lurantis farming up. Lantern going for another move here. Lantern goes for Thunderbolt number 2. Lurantis now quite low, but makes it to the back-to-back Leaf Blades, and that will be game over. Leaf Blade number 1 takes care of the Lantern, and Leaf Blade number 2 may be double resisted, but it's still enough damage to take care of the Ferrothorn and secure the win. Moving to the next match, picking up a fairly neutral lead, Lurantis going up against Kingdra. Considering there's the Shadow Kanto Ninetales in the back, very happy to catch the Kingdra on the lead. Farming up to the superpower, going to fire off the Leaf Blade here. Leaf Blade will do big damage onto the Kingdra, as in the Great League, Kingdra is very frail. If this is just an Octazooka, it's not going to be enough to KO, and it is. Octazooka lands, does get the attack drop, which is quite unfortunate, but even so, this Leaf Blade should just about KO. Opponent commits the shield, in comes Arcanine. Arcanine is going to be answered with a Spark Lantern. Lantern firing off the surface will hit for double super effective damage, so we do see a shield being used. Arcanine farming up to the back-to-back Wild Charges, looking to put pressure back onto the Lantern. Wild Charge number 1 able to land and firing off Wild Charge number 2. Is the Lantern willing to shield? Yes, they are. Lantern farming up. Lantern throws on alignment and gives a free snarl to the Arcanine. That is massive. Arcanine now has the Wild Charge loaded, and this will be taking care of the Lantern. Opponent, we still don't know what their third Pokemon is. They do have the very low health Kingdra switching into the Lurantis, and Lurantis is going to get farmed down. But now, the opponent's final Pokemon is revealed to be Tropius, and things are looking pretty decent here, as Shadow Kanto Ninetales will do very well against this Tropius. These Embers absolutely shredding through the Tropius. Tropius is going to be forced to go for Aerial Ace, which is definitely not a great move, farming up to the back-to-back Weather Balls. Oh man, Weather Ball is going to be double resisted going up against the Kingdra, but the Kingdra is very low. Is this going to be enough damage? Weather Ball onto the Kingdra, gets the KO, and that is a good game. Terrible lead in the next match, Lurantis into Toxapex. Toxapex on the lead is a very unfortunate core breaker for this team. We see a save switch into the Shadow Ninetales. Ninetales is running Psyshock, so it will be able to hit for super effective damage, but this is still not a fantastic spot to be in. Farming up, going to fire off the Psyshock into this Toxapex. Psyshock does get shielded by the opponent. Farming up, unfortunately, will get outpaced, and we see a double shield from the Ninetales. Ninetales continuing to farm up, going for another Psyshock, hoping to try and get some damage off onto the Toxapex. Psyshock is going to get shielded, farming up here, trying to make it to the Psyshock, and is able to get there. Very nicely done. Psyshock almost KOs, leaves them with a sliver of HP. Can one Fury Cutter KO here? Let's see. Sends in Lurantis. Unfortunately, was not able to KO. Opponent only went for the Brine. That is quite nice. In comes Trevenant. Trevenant met with the Arcanine. Trevenant is going to fire off a Seed Bomb here. Seed Bomb not going to KO, but it is definitely going to hurt. Arcanine is a pretty glassy Pokemon, and now going to return fire with the Crunch. This is going to be a goodbye, Mr. Trevenant. Now we'll have to see what they have in the back. They have Shift Tree in the back. Not what Arcanine was hoping to see, but the good news is Lurantis is still alive and has a nice amount of HP remaining, and these Fury Cutters are going to do more damage than possibly any Fury Cutter before. These are double super effective. Making it to the Leaf Blade. This is resisted, but I believe it should be enough to KO. Leaf Blade takes care of the Shift Tree and gets the win. Moving into the next match, leading Lurantis into yet another Trevenant. Same game plan as always, save switch into the Arcanine. Opponent is going to respond with Toxapex, and Toxapex definitely not going to be prepared for the onslaught of Wild Charges it's about to endure. Brine gets shielded, farming up to 100 energy, and beginning to unleash the Wild Charges. Wild Charge number 1, able to land, dealing big damage onto the Toxapex. Now going for the Crunch bait, hoping for a defense debuff and trying to grab a shield. Opponent opponent commits the shield, and we do see the defense drop. That is quite nice. Going for another crunch. We see a double shield. Toxapex desperately trying to keep switch, but if Arcanine wants, Arcanine can take away switch advantage here, and that's exactly what Arcanine is looking to do. Opponent sends in the Trevenant into a loaded crunch, maybe hoping to catch a wild charge, but they did not catch anything other than the wrath of Hisuian Arcanine. Trevenant is going to make it to a Shadow Ball that nearly KOs Lurantis. Lurantis leaving with a sliver of HP. Just gonna blind throw the Leaf Blade into the final Pokemon. Final Pokemon is revealed to be a Hex Shadow Alolan Marowak, and that is quite unfortunate considering there's a Shadow Kanto Ninetales that is going to need to make it to a Psyshock if it wants to do any meaningful damage. Hex does charge decently quickly. We are gonna see they are running Bone Club as well, and I think that's going to be game over. They make it to the back-to-back Bone Clubs. Ninetales not able to make it to a move as we see the snipe from Toxapex. Picking up a pretty nice lead in the next match, Lurantis going up against Ferrothorn. Lurantis, of course, does have access to Superpower, which will hit for some heavy super effective damage. Lurantis farming up. This is not enough for a Flash Cannon. This can only be a Power Whip or a Thunder. Opponent goes for a Thunder there. Thunder definitely not going to be better as Lurantis is at the back-to-back Superpowers. Superpower is going to land, nearly able to KO, and now can just fire off the double resisted Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is going to KO. We'll have to see what does the opponent send in. They send in Toxapex, and now we see a pivot into the Arcanine. Arcanine farming up. Opponent throws on alignment, and Arcanine gets a Snarl for free. That is just so much free energy given to the Arcanine, and Arcanine is about to punish the Toxapex. Wild Charge is going to get the shield. Arcanine farming up and already almost at 2 more Wild Charges here. Wild Charge is going to get the final shield. Arcanine makes it to a 3rd Wild Charge. This thing is just so spammy. Wild Charge connects. Toxapex farming up. Toxapex is finally going to fire off a charge move. At this point, yeah, you just let the Arcanine go. Arcanine more than did its job. Lurantis wins CMP over the Toxapex. Neutral Leaf Blade is going to KO. What do they have in the back? They have a Trevenant. Trevenant down a shield. That's going to be game over. Kanto Ninetales. Weather Ball takes care of the Trevenant and secures the win. Great lead in the next match. Lurantis going up against another Lantern. With 2 fire types in the back, this is exactly the alignment you need. Opponent save switches into a Trevenant, and in comes the Ninetales. Ninetales going for the Weather Ball, losing CMP to the Trevenant. Ninetales respects it. Opponent full sends it, but unfortunately, Ninetales is stuck throwing the Weather Ball. Ninetales is going to zero bubble it, and with that, should get some extra farm down. And now, opponent going to be sending back in their Lantern. Lantern goes for the Surf and loses CMP to the Ninetales. That is quite nice. Psyshock even gets a shield as well. And here you can just let the Ninetales go. Ninetales did its job. You can keep Lurantis aligned against the Lantern. In the back, they have Toxapex. And in comes Hisuian Arcanine. Brian from the Toxapex is going to be grabbing the final shield from the Arcanine, but Arcanine should be able to make it to back-to-back Wild Charges before Brine number 2 is reached. Wild Charge number 1 being fired into the Toxapex, gets the shield, and going for Wild Charge number 2 right off the bat. Needing to land this damage, and that's going to hurt. Getting the Toxapex low. Toxapex is going to fire off the Brine. Brine will get the KO, but Lurantis has a Leaf Blade. So there's no more damage that Toxapex can do, and Lantern with resistant moves is just not getting the job done here. Lurantis with Fury Cutter is just simply too spammy. Lantern is going to be firing off a move. They go for the Thunderbolt. Lurantis makes it not quite to the back-to-back Leaf Blades here. I believe 1 Fury Cutter short. Leaf Blade lands, but no matter. Makes it to the 2nd Leaf Blade anyway. This will be taking care of the Lantern, and that is a good game. Hopping to the final match, leading Lurantis into Shadow Swampert. You love to see it. Opponent is going to be save switching into Trevenant, and Trevenant will be answered with the Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Ninetales farming up, will respect the potential Shadow Ball here. Trevenant does full send it, and this should mean that Ninetales can farm all the way down and leave with a ton of energy to threaten that Shadow Swampert. Shadow Swampert not going to be taking hits nearly as well as the regular. In comes the Shadow Swampert. Ninetales almost at the back-to-back Psyshocks here. Firing off Psyshock number 1, opponent commits a shield, potentially expecting a solar beam, and here you can honestly just let this go. You've kept switch, shields are even, you can just send in Lurantis. Lurantis firing off the Leaf Blade, this should be grabbing the final shield from the Swampert, as Swampert would easily get one shot there. Swampert, we are going to see a charge move thrown, and the Hydro Cannon gets no shielded by the Lurantis. Lurantis goes for the Leaf Blade, and the opponent catches on a Talonflame. Very nice catch by the opponent. However, it's not going to save them. As we've seen from Ultra League, Hisuian Arcanine is Talonflame's worst nightmare. Firing off the Wild Charge. Goodbye, Talonflame. In comes the Shadow Swampert, and not even Swampert is safe from the wrath of Arcanine. Crunch takes care of the Swampert, and that is a good game. All in all, Hisuian Arcanine genuinely looks like a very fun pick for the Color Cup meta. The ability to hit both Trevenant and Toxapex for super effective damage, I believe definitely lends it at least some viability when it comes to the meta, as you're basically going to be seeing one, if not both of those Pokemon on every single team. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.